What's up everybody, how you doing? My name is Gabe Thomas and you're watching Wow Gabe Wow channel. Today I want to make a video about my Sony A7 that I've been shooting on for about a year. It's right here. I got my A7, got a 24mm Sigma 2.8 on here. I got 7 Pros and 7 Cons with the Sony A7. So we start out at number 1, which is a big one for me, which is legacy glass, and basically that allows you to adapt any super old film lens, almost any at least, to the Sony A7. This includes Sony, Minolta, Canon, Nikon, Leica, Zeiss, and many more, just straight to the A7 body. This moves me into my number 2, and that is focus peaking. Now focus peaking allows you to focus easier than you would normally be able to on a DSLR, because it tells you when you're in focus by highlighting the areas that are in focus as you focus in and as you focus out. So it basically tells you what's in focus and what's not. It makes it a lot easier to shoot. Now, getting used to an EVF, it's a whole lot different than a DSLR. You can't use that on a DSLR. It's not something that you can do at all. The only downside to having an EVF is the latency on the actual A7 model, the original. The A7 II and the A7R, A7R2, actually the A7 and A7R have this issue. The A7 II and A7R2 seems to be fixed. The latency issues are a lot easier, a lot better, a lot quicker. This moves me to number 3 of the pros, and that's weather sealing. So the camera is weather sealed to an extent. I wouldn't recommend throwing it in the river, throwing it in a lake, submersing it at all. But if you leave it in the rain, it's not going to kill it immediately. It could last 10 minutes or so, I'd say, in the rain. You'll be alright. Now with that said, it's not going to last in a fucking hurricane, so be careful. Now number 4, there are apps available for the camera which are not available for any other DSLR of the kind yet when I make this video. At least if there is, let me know. Basically, you can download apps from the Sony Play Memories app store that allows you to do all kinds of things like time lapse, like lens compensation for the shape of the lens. There's all kinds of stuff such as Star Trail apps, all kinds of crazy stuff. But check it out. That's number 4. And number 5, we've got into shoots beautiful stills. Now it's a full frame camera, great in low light. That's actually number 7. And it does shoot beautiful stills. The raw files are absolutely amazing. The JPEGs are not good, but you know, what are you going to expect from a JPEG? So, yeah. Number 6, shoots 35mm frame 1080p footage. Now, it doesn't shoot 4K. That's quite a downside, especially for a $1,000 or $1,100 camera that it is now. The body is $1,100. But it does shoot full frame 35mm video, so it allows you to basically adapt your foam lenses and use them for video creation, which is quite an advantage. You know, you can get your 50mm 1.4, throw it on there, costs you $100, and now all of a sudden you're shooting in low light, super low light. So we got number 7, and that's good in low light. So it's usually up to about 6400 ISO. So your video is going to be usable up there, and your photos are going to be usable up there, and that's about the limit actually. Honestly, 8000 ISO, 10,000, it's not that usable. So from here, I'm going to go into the cons of the camera. Now here we go to the cons. First one is the screen. Now, first thing I noticed about the A7 II, A7R2 is that they actually changed the design of the screen. They made it a little bit less wonky, and when I say wonky, I mean, well, let me explain. This camera, when I do this, look at that. The top pops out. That's quite a downside. I think that's from beating it up. Honestly, I beat the shit out of this camera. But it shouldn't do that. It's a full frame professional level camera. And what's up with that, guys? What's up with that, Sony? Whatever, moving on. They fixed that on the A7 II, A7R2. The screen is a little wonky. It does fall out sometimes, especially when you beat the shit out of the camera, like I do. So we're looking at number 2, and that's FE mount lenses are expensive. and they are extremely expensive. Currently, haven't even bought an FE mount lens yet. I'm going to be buying the kit lens soon. Yeah, I know. But you know what? They're all expensive. They're all extremely expensive, to the point where it's not even worth buying them. I mean, you got the kit lens coming in about $250 on eBay. Yeah, that's definitely reasonable, but you're looking at the Zeiss lenses that cost $800 for a zoom lens. I mean, it's a joke. Some people would disagree. Most people would agree with me, though. Number 3, small form factor, hence the case on my camera. So it's extremely small camera. Now, let me take the case off here. So the case is off now. Here's the camera. Very small. Very, very tiny. For full frame, it's microscopic. Now, with that being said, you can put a case on it, make it bigger. No big deal. Number 4, does not shoot XAVC-S or XAVC codec, which is an extreme downside, honestly. The A7 II does, shoots at 50 megabits a second, which is actually my 6th qualm with this camera, but it does not shoot XAVC-S. It shoots AVC-HD, which is not a terrible format, but it's definitely not a good one. So you're not going to lose all your quality with AVC-HD, but you're going to be very limited. XAVC is a much higher bitrate codec, so just naturally it's going to have a lot more detail in it, even at shooting at 1080p, which the A7 II only goes up to. So basically, that's a huge downside. That's a huge downside. But, you know, maybe if your workflow is very limited. I mean, personally, my workflow is extremely limited. So, I mean, hell, I have a MacBook Air and a gaming laptop. That's all I have. So I'm limited to the file size. It's very limited. But this is stuff you got to think about when you buy the camera. Number 6, does not shoot higher than 24 megabits a second. That's an extreme downside. I'm not gonna lie, and that's due to AVC-HD. Yeah, moving on. Does not have in-body stabilization for legacy glass. Now, this wouldn't be a downside, but the A7 II exists, and they do have in-body stabilization for legacy glass. So if you're willing to pay a couple $100 more, you're gonna get in-body stabilization out of the box. Which means you can throw a fucking film lens on for $100 from 50 years ago and have it stabilized on the camera, which is ridiculous. It's unheard of. So here's my Sony A7 Pros and Cons. Thanks for watching.